Hey y'all, this is Charlie Bonner with Move Texas. Welcome to another great edition of Move University, Social Justice for Social Distancing. So excited that y'all are joining us today for a critical conversation on art and activism. So grateful to be joined today by my good friends, Cruz and Olivia Ortiz from Burnt Nopal Creative Studios. How are y'all doing?
Doing well.
Hanging in there.
Hanging in there, yeah. I'm like, that's the first question every time. I'm like, is everyone okay? Are we staying sane? I know you have all your kids with you too.
Oh, okay.
We've got some chickens. We've got a poodle. We've got a crazy cat that's killing my plants.
This is a complex cast of characters.
Yes. Yeah,
I love it.
Bunnies as well. We got 2 rabbits. We're crazy.
So you're running a zoo also is what
Yes.
Perfect.
Small farm.
Perfect. Well, I'm so excited y'all are here today. I'm trying to pull this up on my phone too, so I can take questions. So if you're watching this live on Facebook, I have my own set of questions, but make sure that you're writing yours in the comments, and we're so happy to take those as well. First of all, let's just get to know y'all a little bit better. I know you guys, but if you want to just tell me a little bit about yourselves and a little bit about Burnt Nopal.
Okay. Well, we're Cruz and Olivia Ortiz. We have been together for about 10 years. We met as teachers. So had the activism back then where we saved the world through students, through kids. Then, I don't know, we kind of decided, you know what, this isn't working. We need to do something bigger, bolder. So we left teaching and started another creative firm called Snakehawk Press, and we have since rebranded to Burnt Nopal. And then if you want to talk about Burnt Nopal.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think going back to, us teaching, that was a whole thing that we had in common, is that we wanted to save the world, and we thought, why not be a teacher? And it was great. The kids are great. The teachers are great, but just the whole infrastructure of the entire system was
the
not
educational
working.
system.
It just wasn't working.
Yeah.
And we just felt like we were wasting our time as 2 creatives, 2 people who felt passionate about changing the world, that just a teacher, it just wasn't working. And we saw burnout in other teachers in it. So it kind of like, we put our heads together, and then we're like, you know what, why don't we do something else by doing design? Well, it was the absolute vodka bottle. That was but yeah, it was definitely like understanding how, creating design could help, change the world. And I think that's what Snakehawk Press, and then Olivia was the one who left the teaching field first, and she was like, okay, got to do that first.
So I mean, I did all the boring stuff for the business, got your paperwork in order, LLC, stuff like that. And then we, once summer of 2015 hit, we jumped full in, him as well, because he was used to the medical insurance and the monthly paychecks. So he was a little wary of making the jump. But so it's been since 2015.
Yeah, and then going back to Burnt Nopal, the whole, the first company we did, Snakehawk Press, was awesome. And it was at that point where, a lot of the Latino market was, coming into play. And, we were really focused on doing work that, in a fun way brought some stuff to light, and honor the traditions of what it means to be Latino in the United States. But then also, understanding what politics mean and how politics can be involved. But then it got real cheesy. Like after a while, just like, oh my God, tacos, yay. And like, oh my God. And we knew, like, I think, there was lots of things, but I think definitely we saw society change after when Trump came into power. And we were like, you know what, this, pan dulce stuff is cute, but is it really working? Again, analyzing what we're doing, trying to figure it out.
And it was working in a sense, but it wasn't what was altruistic to who we were.
Yeah.
So we needed to get back to that. And so we just kind of grew.
Yeah, and what's funny is that Burnt Nopal came from we had a club as teachers.
Oh, yes. No, we didn't. We wanted to enact the club, but fashion, art,
It
and
was like a
politics.
really, fashion, art, and politics.
Fashion, art, and
Love
politics.
it.
So that became the
Would have been in. Would have been in.
Yes, it was. But so that club became the pillars of Burnt Nopal.
Yeah, and
Fashion,
so
art, and politics.
and that's what we're doing now is we take things design a little bit more serious. You know, we're understanding, you know, where I come from, the contemporary art museum world, where, you know, stuff is real. Like these are the real issues affecting society. How do we respond to those? How do you create in spite of these different differences and changes? And so I think that's the angle for Burnt Nopal, is looking at how can design help, you know, the world in that sense, and bringing back education, you know, because there was this whole, you know, loss of information or loss of education process that I think humans have lost.
Critical thinking.
Right. And so it's kind of interesting how we're looking at how design can do that. And so a lot of our designs, you know, are basic, looking at, you know, the climate, looking at women's issues, looking at immigration. We work with
Healthcare in general.
yeah, healthcare. We're looking at cannabis and how that can help with the entire health and economy and lots of different things. So we're taking on those clients that people kind of shy away from. One of our big clients, of course, was Julian Castro, which was our first really awesome national
political campaign.
Yeah, so that was cool to work on. So we got to
Stuff you made was beautiful too.
Yeah, thank you. It was really nice. It was fun. So, you know, those things, I think, you know, we're diving in where a lot of graphic design firms kind of don't, I guess, or they don't brag about it, or I don't know what's going on. But we love politics and we love it.
Yeah, you don't shy away from it, which is definitely interesting, because I think some folks, you know, we know lots of creatives want to be involved in this space, but sometimes they're a little bit afraid, or, you know, how it might affect the other business. And I think y'all have been a great model of like building a business around your values and showing that like that's just one way to do it. There's lots of great folks tuning in right now, including my high school art teacher, who said she totally feels you on all the art stuff and being a teacher and those struggles. She's definitely one of the activists that inspired me, so I'm glad that she's watching today. In Richmond, Virginia, shout out shout out to the cause. Let's see, pulling some questions online. Also, lots of people love your work, unsurprising. This question is from Priscilla. What is a small step we can take to support creatives with a message or be more creative ourselves as an activist?
As an activist, I think there's lots of things. I think, I mean, I could, you know, jot down a nice little list, but I think, you know, especially right now, these times are, you know, times of reflection, self-reflection. I think it's time to like do a lot of writing, a lot of intro, and get ready for the election. I think that's the thing that I've been trying to tell folks, and that, you know, other artists that we've worked with, we were working with like different groups of artists, and we're, you know, getting ready, we're gearing up. Like, this is, you know, take care of your family, take care of yourself right now, but let's start gearing up big time. Let's come out in full force, like Game of Thrones style, like because it needs to happen. I mean, obviously we're seeing that. So.
And I think, yes, like the practical, like the writing and the drawing and et cetera, but also getting creative in other ways, like how to mobilize the vote. How to, okay, yes, we've registered you to vote, but how do we get you there? Things like that. So in San Antonio, we started Budo Brigade, which is not a nonprofit, not a business. It's just this kind of club.
We're really into clubs.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Me too.
Where we take people, you know, they call a phone number because a lot of older people aren't going to get online, and, you know, Lyft, Uber, which are all great opportunities to get to the polls. Older people aren't going to use that. They want to use the analog phone, and so we provide that. So just thinking outside the box and how you can help in politics.
Yeah. I think that's great. Yeah. And so much of what we do at Move too, just thinking differently about how to engage people. So love that question. A question from Drew. Do you have a favorite piece of political art or project that you've worked on? And what did it mean to you?
I'll go
I'm
first.
like, we're picking favorites.
My brain's exploding. Sorry.
He can go first. So. I mean, I'll go first so
Yeah.
he can think about it. For me, obviously we've done so many. We've done local, regional, and then of course our first national. But for me, the Julian side profile was my favorite image with the 3 colors. It was just very contemporary, very cool.
Yeah.
It was something we hadn't seen from that candidate yet. And it just kind of gave him an edge, and it was really prolific.
I don't know how to answer that question.
That's okay.
I mean, there's just so many important works that I've seen, you know, throughout time, I guess. But I think what's inspired me, one of the artists that, and I didn't have anything to do with this, but just, I guess, who I look up to as far as like artists who inspire me, but definitely Joseph Beuys. Joseph Beuys is one of the, if not the founder of the Green Party in Europe. And like one of his big projects was just planting a bunch of trees, and that was the art project. And so, you know, we started to see contemporary art, you know, fulfill that human need, and calling itself contemporary art. And I think that that's something that's always inspired me to do the stuff that I've done. I've done lots of different projects. I mean, everything from a full-on mural project on the west side of San Antonio, where there's over 50 murals outside. And all those murals have something to do with what it means to me to be in a community or how to give back. So I've done that. I've done newspaper projects that I considered art. So that, you know, that Picasso actually was a newspaper project that went to prisons, and we did, you know, different interactions with the community and also with prison. So it was kind of neat to see that. Yeah, everything from like the political posters that I've been working on for years. I think for me, that as an artist, you know, I think that there's always a gap between politics and the people, which is really interesting. I mean, it's designed to be that way, by the way. But I have always felt like as an artist, I had that ability to make those connections. And I think it's important for everyone to think like that. Like, how can I, one person or anybody, make sure that there's a connection between politics and what happens, you know, in DC or in Austin, to, you know, to the person who's working across the street or like who lives next door to me. So it's like, those are the things I think are that influence my work, and trying to like making sure that, you know, we make art that's, you know, accessible and also making you think a little bit.
Yeah. We talk about that as cultural organizing. That it's not enough to like organize the people. We have to organize the culture, you know, that it is like everything that you see and consume, like all of that influences how you're going to vote and things like that. So we have to change all of those things.
That's a great
Yeah, I like that term a lot.
I mean, I've heard it. Yeah, and I think it's important, Charlie.
I didn't come up with it, but
but no,
I'm gonna write it down.
I think it's so important, because I think that's something that we don't do enough of. Like, and I've seen that because what the Buddha Brigade, or, you know, the political posters, as soon as, you know, for example, when Beto's campaign ended with the Senate race, well, then everyone, you know, took a break. And then, you know, stuff got passed, you know, and so it's like understanding, you know, not just politics as being, you know, a seasonal thing. Like, it's voting time. Like, let's look at the calendar. And it's like, no, I think it needs to be a part of everyday life. And I think that's something that's not happening in schools, where we're being we're being taught, the children aren't being taught that to be involved in civics is super important. So
that's one of the things I always go back to. Like, the reason I work in politics is because I had a really good civics teacher in 7th grade.
Yeah.
And like, she's the reason that I do this work. And so many people don't have that opportunity anymore. And it's not about, you know, devoting your life to working at Move. It's about showing up and speaking out and paying attention.
Yeah, and doing our part as citizens.
Yeah, I totally agree. We have some more great questions coming in. How did you guys just get involved with campaigns and activism? Was that, you know, from being a teacher, you know, that kind of struggle, is that where you entered in, or what came first?
So I'm a poli-sci major, poli-sci English. So it's kind of always been there.
Yeah.
And then I just became a teacher, but I felt like I wasn't doing enough. I originally had wanted to be an attorney. And now that I'm sitting where I'm sitting, I don't think I would have enjoyed it. Like, I like being involved in this capacity. So how did it first start? I guess with local politicians. You know, I think we first started doing prints for free for people that we liked. And then it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah, it was funny because then it became a thing. Like, everyone, I remember that one, kind of, was a couple years ago, where we were just making posters for different politicians. And then we have politicians coming to us, hey, would you mind if we hire you to make some posters? I'm like,
that'd be great.
Yeah, all right. And so we did that. And then it became a thing, you know, like, where every Democratic, you know, candidate was coming to us. Like, they were like, well, it's kind of a thing to do now. Like, if, you know, not just the gross coroplast science, but let's get some cool design.
Yeah, something that's going to speak to people. And gosh, I lost my train of thought. But what was I going to say? I was going to piggyback on something you said. It'll come back.
No, but I think you're totally right. And I think there's like, we consume so much political media that looks exactly the same, and we just like go with it. You know, like, not everything has to be that corrugated plastic sign that's red, white, and blue, right? Like, and that's not standing out as a candidate, but it's also like not where we're meeting people. But that's not what design looks like right now.
Exactly, and that's the challenge that we, you know, put out there, is that, you know, let's change it up a little bit. Let's make things a little different. Let's get away from like the half-tone, you know, photo of the person, like, awkward smile. And then you meet them, you're like, whoa, you don't look anything like that picture. So it's kind of like interesting to see, you know, and everyone uses the same font. There's lots of font violations, I call them, but so yeah, it's interesting to see those challenges as far as design, and because that's what design's about. It's about connecting.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. It's come to the point that we have to, or we prefer to sit down with the candidate before like agreeing. It's not just you can come and hire Burnt Nopal. Like, we have to like you. We have to like what you're about.
We vet.
Yeah.
We definitely vet.
You know, we can't put our stamp of approval. Oh, this was a Burnt Nopal product for, you know, just anybody that maybe has issues with abortion or etc. Like, so.
Yeah, and I think that's really, that gets back to what we were talking about. Like, you've designed a business around your values.
Right.
And that's such a unique thing to do. And you're really showing how successful it can be for other creatives and for other people. I think there's a lot of people who could be involved in this. I just, maybe like in a broader sense, what do you think the role of create is in the activism political space? I know we talked a little bit about, you know, connecting with people, but what do you think the role is for all creative people?
Well, I think there's lots of roles. I think, you know, and I think everyone has the ability to get creative, right? Whether it's, you know, whether it's making art, or, you know, even if it's understanding how your talents or how your interests could help, you know, the effort of getting, you know, people into politics, and understanding like, I have the chance to be at the table, or to have my voice heard in certain issues. I think, you know, I've seen cooks, you know, chefs put on amazing meals just to get people to vote, or there was that person with a taco truck in Philadelphia, lining them up to get, I think those are creative ways of doing that, like of making people understand that, that this is important. All the work that we're doing right now is super vital to how we understand our world and how we, get things done.
Yeah.
So.
We don't agree on this next statement that I'm about to say, but
I like this.
I truly believe that artists have an obligation to to save the world. They have an obligation to be the people on the ground, to speak up when they see something wrong first, because they do have that platform. He doesn't agree. He thinks that artists should be able to create whatever they want.
I mean, I understand what she's saying. I think that, there's something to be said about how an artist is able to be there for people in that sense. Yeah. That artists have the tendency, and, historically have been in a position to present information or to present an angle of understanding that is difficult in media. You know what I mean? Like, you can't, it's why we have movies, right? Where movies, show us what it means to get involved, or, you're starting to see a lot. I mean, the last couple of years, a lot of the movies have been Star Wars, Game of Thrones, like all these, empire, bad empire, and the people, the rebels, you know what I mean? Like, come together. Like, so I think there's different creative ways to getting that done. But yeah, that's one of the things we disagree with. But I think artists should, if they want to be an artist, draw a flower all day, go for it. You don't have to make anything like that's okay. So
if they want to draw me all day, that's okay too. I'm available. Another great question here from Kristen. What do you think defines or shapes successful political content? Do you think it depends, or is there a couple of things that y'all are always pointing to that is successful?
It's interesting.
Context or content?
Content.
Okay.
Content, sorry.
It's funny. We did that with the Julian campaign. We that question came up on our team meetings here, and it was interesting because that's a very cool question in the sense that we had to expand what our candidate was about. I mean, obviously he was Latino, he was young, from San Antonio, we're in San Antonio, so we had to go beyond that. And I think that's what it was, is expanding the net to include everything. So we actually divided the nation into 12 categories of how we would handle design in those 12 areas. And so understanding how that could happen, understanding how, how do you make design for different people?
Yeah.
But at the same time, have the same flavor, the messaging, because it's why candidates go on campaigns. They're going to Iowa. Well, what you say in Iowa is not the same what you're going to say in Nevada. So you got to make sure to figure stuff out. So.
One might refer to it as cultural organization.
One might.
Yeah, I think it's really tricky. I think, it's really getting to understand the politics. I know that we've worked with the Native American efforts with the pipelines. And so that for us was a big lesson of just shutting up and just understanding, I just need to listen. And how do I do that? Even with...
and how to implement what you've heard for a group of folks, that, yes, this affects all of us, but they're the ones that have the knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's super interesting. The other campaign that I thought design-wise was really interesting was the stuff that Mayor Pete's campaign was doing, where they released it to everyone. That I thought was kind of fascinating. Just my personal obsession with campaign design. Question from Mrs. Field, my high school art teacher. How can teachers support your work? And she's an art and art history teacher. What can folks like that do to be involved in this kind of art and activism movement?
Well, I'll take that one. Okay. Well, you know, I would show, as an art teacher, I would always show contemporary artists. You know, it's funny, I was probably the worst art teacher because I didn't do like tempera fish or sock bunnies, and I didn't even do like, you know, paintings. A lot of my students, we just read a lot. And like I would do, you know, handouts of essays by different artists. And a lot of my art kids would be all, "Sir, when are we gonna draw?" I'm like, you can't even think. How are you supposed to draw? I need you to think first. So that's what, I mean, I think I would encourage all art instructors to get your kids to think first. It's critical thinking that all these children are missing. And there's reason to that. I mean, and she's pointed out as a high school English teacher, how they're not even reading whole books.
No, we're not. We're doing excerpts from books from a 6th grade reading level.
Yeah.
But I think the question also said, like, what can other art teachers do to support his work?
That was my own question. You know,
Okay.
how can teachers support you?
I think it would be awesome just to show the work. Show the work. Show the work.
He notably has a piece now that's been picked up by the Smithsonian. Like, you can show that whenever you'd like.
That's a good one.
I'll plug your work. It's fine. I have no qualms about that. Let's get back to some of my question. And we just have a few more. So if you're watching, feel free to ask a couple more questions for our friends here. What do I want to watch? How do you think that art and activism has like created social and political change? What have you seen that's been successful, I guess, in the kind of movement space, either in your own work or things that you pull reference from as being successful? That's a hard question. That's a big question.
I've seen different stuff that has worked. I think there's different things. Yeah, there's different things that work. So on a visual manner, definitely the history of poster making. I think, you know, keeping it basic, right? Of just where creatives are challenged to somehow articulate visually a movement, right? So you saw a lot of, you know, the civil rights movement. We saw lots of like peace sign, right? The flower, like the gun with the flower in it, like those kind of things.
That was civil rights.
Yeah, it's the hippies. See, you got to listen to the hippies.
Oh, civil rights. Yes.
Yeah. So like, you know, no.
Whoa. Like, wait a minute.
No, I know. No, of course, like the Black Panther Party, like that image of the Black Panther, which is super iconic. The Cesar Chavez flag. Mm-hmm. Those are icons that we grip onto, and I think that's great design movements. You know, understanding how to create a logo or a design or a brand of colors that people can react to. And I think those are all great things that can happen. I also think like video currently, I think a lot of video that's being created is really activating how media is geared towards people who are used to that stuff, like on the phone. Like, so I think that could help too. And of course, you know,
I was thinking more of the old school. So like when you started talking about poster making, I was thinking of guerrilla marketing. Like I feel like that works a lot with wheat paste and a strong image, just, you know, on construction buildings or what have you. Like I think that really speaks to a community without it being so in your face.
Yeah, and then of
or
course,
so formal or professional.
Yeah. And of course, performance art. I mean, Guerrilla Girls. I mean, there's so many different groups. A lot of Latin American artists during the regimes down there, you know, were the ones who really started a lot of the, you know, performance art activism, like Regina in Mexico, and all these different people, like Minerva Cuevas in Mexico City, you know, where she's just sweeping a street, and that became a political act. And so, you know, I think all those things need to happen. I think even now, like creatives and artists and performers, everyone needs to hit the streets hard. And it's funny because I remember talking to a political professor of mine, and I tell him, dude, protesting's so lame. No one listens. Like, I've been and no one cares. He's like, Cruz, that's the last damn thing we have are the streets. And I was like, I didn't believe him, but I think he's right.
I'm like, he showed us. He showed us. So at the end of all of these, we release our recommendations of things that people can do at home right now. So what they can read and watch while we're all quarantining and social distancing. So we release that on Twitter or move_Texas after this. Anything you'd like to add? What are y'all reading? What do you think people should read about art and activism? Any recommendations?
What am I reading? Nothing fun.
Me neither.
You know.
How to make it out of the
Yeah.
mess financially. That's a good read.
Yes. But I did see the Hillary documentary yesterday on Hulu. So that was a great one. I feel like
Super good.
Mhm.
Super good.
I've been getting really into a lot of the because I'm a Texan, proud Texan, but there's a lot of interesting books on the period of the Texas Rangers, like exactly what they did, and it's kind of like digging in deep as far as the culture of Austin, Texas, and of the powers that run the state of Texas, and I think those things are so enlightening. Like $10 to Hate. There's a bunch of how the how the KKK determined a lot of Corpus Christi and how it's nuts. Like there's a bunch of cool books, and it's all because Dr. Ellen Clark, who's out at San Antonio, she showed me a bunch of important books that you don't hear about, and I think those are the things that I've been really paying attention to, like the Indian Wars of Texas, about what was behind all that, how the cavalries in West Texas, really how the Buffalo Soldiers were present also. So that's I get nerded out by Texas history.
Me too. I totally get it. We'll make sure we add those to our list. Where can the people find your work? Can they find you online? Anything to plug?
www.burntnopal.com and www.cruzortizart.net. We're also on Instagram, Facebook. He's on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter. Do you have a TikTok yet?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. He probably has a Snap.
I don't know.
So
all the things. You're everywhere. And Cruz has been doing great Instagram lives painting throughout the team. So follow those. I pop in from time to time to see your progress. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And I'm such a fan of y'all's work. And glad we could do this today. Thank you all for watching and for your questions today. We'll be back on Thursday with a conversation on DACA with our friends from United We Dream and from Deeds Not Words. So make sure that you tune into that. There's already a Facebook event up for that. And then more great content from home coming in the coming weeks. So thank you guys for watching. Wash your hands.